Cracks in space-time have emerged from the overuse of time travel, and now a quake is moving through the galaxy, threatening the past, present, and future of the 15 allied worlds. You and the other scientists must try to repair connections to the space-time continuum and work to create new time strands so that you can repair the timelines of as many planets as possible.
Paradox is a unique kind of game, which includes set collection and the manipulation of a matrix of colorful discs. There are 12 rounds, and you can expect games to last around 30 minutes per player. I find the game to be quite intriguing from the beginning to the end, and it has been quite a hit with all kinds of gamers. Now let's get to work and start saving some worlds. Set up the Multiverse board and randomly place all 15 of the Allied World discs in these spaces. This orange Quake marker starts on this planet with the orange ring. The blue turn marker is placed onto turn 1. Shuffle the deck of Multiverse cards and place 4 of them along the stable wormhole and 4 of them along the unstable wormhole. Give every scientist a player mat. Create sets of energy discs with 1 of each symbol in the 5 different colors for a set of 15. Take a number of sets according to the number of players, in this case 5 sets for a 3-player game, and place them into the matrix bag. Now pass the bag to each scientist, who then takes out discs 1 at a time to form a 5x5 grid next to their player mat. Start on the bottom row and fill in from the left to the right. After all scientists have formed their matrices, add 2 additional sets of energy discs to the matrix bag and draw discs to fill the anomaly. Keep pulling out discs until you get 1 of each symbol. Then return duplicates back to the bag. Select a chief scientist and give that player this card. It is your goal to collect as many cards from the same planet as possible. Every planet on the board is designated with a letter, and the corresponding cards are labeled with the same letter on top. Each planet has a past, a present, and a future card, which form one complete scene depicting the evolution of life on the planet. All planets also have a Nexus card. The chief scientist draws the top 4 cards from the Multiverse draw deck and studies them, while the other players draft 1 card each from the 8 face-up cards. After each of the other players have drafted, the chief scientist can decide to choose a single card from the 4 cards in hand, or 2 cards from those remaining on the table. The hand is then placed back on top of the Multiverse deck. Each player places the cards they've drawn onto the appropriate spaces on their player mat. Past and Nexus cards here, present cards here, and future cards here. Starting with the player to the left of the chief scientist, everyone now manipulates their matrix. You get 2 actions with which you can exchange 2 discs with the same symbol. The goal is to create time strands of discs that are either 4 in a row or 5 in a row. If you create a time strand of any length, then you must resolve it immediately. Strands of 5 are created by linking discs together in the middle, because if you try to link them from the end, you will need to resolve the strand of 4 before you are able to create the strand of 5. You may find that the energy disc you need is located here in the anomaly, so you are able to swap with these discs if you like. Resolving a time strand of 4 will give you 1 resource, which is simply one of the energy discs from the strand. Time strands of 5 will give you 2 resources. You must allocate the resources immediately to repair the timeline cards or to save the planets. Timeline cards show the necessary resources needed to repair them at the top. Generally, yellow, blue, and red energy discs are used for these. Future cards require only 1 resource. Present cards need 2 of the same color, and past cards need 3 of any color resource, even the black and white discs. Once a timeline card is repaired, you must move the Quake marker ahead according to the chart at the top of the player mat. Move ahead 1 space for a future card, 3 spaces for a present card, and 5 spaces for a past card. When the Quake moves, the planet it stops on is fractured and flipped over. If you draft a Nexus card, then you place a blue shield token on the energy disc in the matrix as it is shown on the card. This disc is locked into place and cannot be swapped. It does not move until you resolve the strand that includes that disc. Once resolved, the Nexus card is repaired. Place all repaired timeline and Nexus cards into a face-down pile next to your player mat. These are the cards you score at the end of the game. Energy discs that are not used as resources or that come from repaired cards go onto this discard space. If you resolve a strand of black or white energy discs, you can use the resources to help planets. If the quake has fractured a planet, you may use one resource to stabilize it and flip it back over. If the planet is already stable, then you can use one resource to shield the planet by placing a blue shield token on top. If the quake hits a shielded planet, the shield is destroyed, but the planet remains stable. If the quake hits a fractured planet, no further damage is done to it. Energy discs in your matrix move down to fill in any spaces vacated by strands which were removed. Fill in any open spaces with new discs drawn from the matrix bag, starting from the bottom left and moving right and then up. If any new strands are created while you are refilling the energy discs, you do not need to resolve them if you don't wish to. If you have another action left, you can choose to resolve this strand or ignore it and swap discs. Remember, any energy discs which are shielded because of a Nexus card are stuck in place and do not move down. After you have finished all of your actions, you replace the discarded energy discs back into the matrix bag and pass to the player on the left, who then starts their matrix actions. The last player to go in the round is the chief scientist, after which the round is over and you must reset for the next round. Cards in the unstable wormhole are put into the discard pile. Cards in the stable wormhole move down to the unstable wormhole. Draw cards from the Multiverse draw deck to fill in the empty spots. All players move the cards on their player mats one space to the right. You see, you have a limited number of rounds to repair cards on your mat, and any cards that are on the danger space fall off the edge and are put into the discard pile. You are not able to repair them, and that world is now in deep despair. Pass the Chief Scientist card to the left and advance the turn marker. After the 12th round, you figure out your scores. Any planets which remain fractured are removed, as well as any cards in your possession from those planets, so you can see the importance of protecting those worlds. Now it's time to count the points you've achieved for collecting card sets. Every single card you have from a world gives you 1 victory point. A pair of cards gets you 3 points. A set of 3 cards gives you 6 points, and all 4 cards from a single world gives you 10 points. That is the basic gameplay of Paradox, but there's a lot more to this game than these basics. Cards must be added to the Multiverse deck to make things more interesting. In every game, Nebula cards are shuffled in, and when drawn, they are placed over these 3 discs in the anomaly. It prevents players from trading with this area. The card remains until the end of the round, and then you discard it. A scenario must be added to the Multiverse deck each game. There are 2 kinds to choose from, either deck scenarios or triggered scenarios. Deck scenarios come out when you draw new cards and you have a chance to draft them from the wormhole. Triggered scenarios come into play if you draw these special purple energy discs. Once you've pulled 3 or 4 of them from the matrix bag, depending on the player count, you trigger the scenario card on the top. Return the purple disc to the bag, and once 3 or 4 are pulled out again, the next scenario card is triggered. Research goals are an additional way to get end-game victory points. At the beginning of each game, you shuffle these 11 cards, draw 3, and place them into these slots. Every card you have that meets the goal in slot 1 gives you 1 victory point. Every set of 2 cards that meet the goal in slot 2 gives you 3 victory points. And every set of 3 cards that meet the third goal gives you 6 victory points. Finally, you may wish to play the game using these alliance tokens. Place them near the board and grab them up using resources of the same color. Place them near your player mat and use them as resources to repair timeline cards on future turns, or save them until the end of the game for 1 victory point each. But watch out, other players may use the same colored resource to break your alliance and return the token back to the pool again. What a fun game! Designed by Brian Suhre and published by Split Second Games, Paradox has one of the most unique board game mechanics that I've ever played. This matrix reminded me of smartphone games which match colors together, but I've never seen it implemented into a board game before. I expect to see more of this mechanic in all kinds of future board games. The timeline card artwork for each planet was designed by a different artist, so every illustration is unique. It's really nice to see how all the cards fit together for those planetary scenes. Taken together, this game has lots of variability, and it is one of the best games I've played in a long time. You would do well to give this game your attention and save some planets from the Quake in Paradox.